They say good design is obvious, but great design is transparent. We're pursuing perfect hotel design wherever we can find it. That means speaking to the brightest minds in the hospitality industry. This is the Hotel Design Podcast.
Hey everyone, Glenn here. Listen, these days it's all about LVT, right? Luxury vinyl tile. It's the number one choice in guest rooms for a lot of reasons, but of course, cleanliness and good air quality, particularly now because there's such a heightened emphasis on being clean. Now, my good friends over at Porcelanosa, they've been offering link floor for a really long time now, and it's a high quality LVT solution with the most incredible sound absorption I've ever not heard, right? So you got the cleanliness aspect, you got the sound absorption aspect. Now, to prove that, I had a chance to visit the architectural lab called Intertech in York, Pennsylvania, and I witnessed it myself. Porcelanosa, they've done the research to keep a guest rooms quiet. Plus, you'll have the assurance of passing relevant building codes and creating an environment of cleanliness you know is so important. Please go to porcelanosa.com and learn more. Then click on that link floor tab or drop us a line over here, info@thehoteldesignpodcast.com. That's info@hoteldesignpodcast.com. Let them know Glenn sent you. Thanks. Hey, everybody, your friendly neighborhood Glenn here, and welcome back to the Hotel Design Podcast. Now, listen, today, you got to forgive me right up front because I might be a little bit too happy, a little bit too giddy, perhaps because that's because I've got one of my favorite architecture designer folks in the entire world here. Because I love Las Vegas, because he helped create and define what Las Vegas is. Let's bring in the one and only Mr. Paul Steelman of Steelman Partners. So great to see you, Paul. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Glenn. I am absolutely super today. What a wonderful day to here in Las Vegas it is.
It really is. So listen, it feels so much better. This is as we're filming this in the very, very beginning of December, end of November, beginning of December, 2021. This is my fourth trip back here, Paul. I was back here in June. I was here twice in October. I'm here now. And every time I'm here, I feel like it's getting more exciting. People are coming back. Events are coming back. And that must feel good for you, for somebody who's done a lot of these incredible major projects here in town.
It feels great, but I think with 4 trips, you should be thinking about moving here. So, I mean, it's a wonderful place to live. And it's, obviously the amount of entertainment, the amount of things that we have to do on the strip and in downtown, and the amount of diversity of our entrepreneurs, our mavericks, who are the prime drivers of the Las Vegas Renaissance that is constantly going on and on and on, have made our town very exciting. And in a COVID sort of world, after COVID, I think a lot of people are thinking, let's not do the foreign trip, but let's come to Las Vegas because, face it, it is a great experience and a great vacation. And if you would move here, 7 or 8 miles out of town, we have some of the most beautiful deserts and the most beautiful mountains you've ever seen in your entire life.
It is. And Paul, I'll tell you, one time I did manage to get there and see some stuff out there, but the strip is just so alluring. It's very difficult for me to go anywhere other than all the casinos. But you're right. The city keeps changing. It keeps adapting. And when you're talking about architecture and design throughout your career, you've had to help usher in those next eras of Las Vegas, right? So I totally get that you're helping drive things into the future. So I want to talk to you a little bit about where you started, and then we're going to get into some of these great projects that you've worked on most recently. What was it like here in the early-ish days when you first arrived, and that was pre-Mirage, right?
Right. I was very fortunate when I graduated college to go to work for my mentor, Joel Bergman and Steve Wynn.
Right.
And, face it, I was on the other end of Steve Wynn throwing a pen at me many days. So I really learned to listen. I really learned that the entrepreneurial spirit of a guy like that is absolutely incredible. And so when I first got here, I moved here in 1986. I actually lived downtown in the Golden Nugget for 1 year.
That's pretty cool.
That was a different experience for me, a slice of life. A kid from the beach in New Jersey living on that street was very, very interesting.
It should have been. And just for our viewers who aren't familiar, Steve Wynn owned the Golden Nugget at that particular period of time and was getting set to reinvent Las Vegas with the Mirage, right?
It was called at that time the Golden Nugget Center Strip.
Right.
because it couldn't be called the Mirage at that time because there was a Mirage motel. And believe it or not, there was a Mirage donut shop. So Steve Wynn had to buy both of those names before he was able to create.
That's hysterical.
Mirage.
So what was the Mirage donut shop like? You go in there, they give you a donut, you wind up going home and it's a bagel?
Could have been.
Right.
Could have been. I don't think I ever was in that donut shop, but I know that he had to buy two Mirage names prior to him announcing it. So it was called the Golden Nugget Center Strip. So it was and still is a very exciting project. And a matter of fact, it is for sale today. And there are a lot of people that are looking at it, kicking the tires and seeing what they can do for the next 30 years of the Mirage.
It sure is interesting what has been going on in Las Vegas. And Las Vegas continues to change, and you've been here to see all of those. So the Mirage, when that opened, redefined what Las Vegas was supposed to be, kind of ushered in the world of corporations, moving it away from the previous entities that were involved in a day-to-day basis in the casinos. And that's when we started to see all of the conferences and events come in once Sheldon Adelson started building over at the convention center, and then Venetian Palazzo, for example. And that kind of really ushered in a whole new era. And then after that era, Paul, I feel like we started to get to, I'm skipping over the family era, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. Please do.
Yeah.
Please do.
And we're and then we moved into the era of, hey, let's not just worry about what's going on the casino floor, but all of the other incredible amenities are out there. And some of the projects that you've been working on more recently, I think, espouse all of those types of things. So let me set this up. We're going to talk a little bit today about Resorts World Las Vegas, which opened this past summer here in right nearby Wynn and Encore. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about Circa Las Vegas, which opened at the end of last year, right? End of 2020. I think it was November or December. And we're going to talk about some upcoming stuff as well. So what was it like when you started working on the Resorts World project? And I think the first question should be is, when specifically did you get involved in that?
I think we were one of the first people. I was very fortunate to know Chiwa Lim, KT Lim's brother. I knew KT.
And of course, those are the gentlemen from Genting.
Yes, they are the KT Lim is the principal shareholder of the Genting Group.
I had the honor of getting to meet him at the opening of Resorts World.
Very good, very good. He is a very innovative thinker. I was absolutely thrilled that he would choose our architectural firm to, in fact, do such an important project. And a matter of fact, we announced that project here in 2013 with Governor Sandoval right in this very room.
Right. Wow.
And we started to get involved in this project in 2012. And it was 9 years and 2 months that before it opened. There were several delays, several design changes along the way. Matter of fact, a lot of design changes.
Several design changes. It looked what the final iteration was very different than that early concept art.
That was. I think the early concepts were. It's funny. The early concepts were Chinese on the outside, in the front, but in the back, it always was a modern facility. We never believed that we could translate the Chinese architecture into the interiors very well. We could translate the Asian feeling into the interiors very well in a modern sort of way, but we never thought we could do that historical sort of stuff. But it actually morphed into something a little bit more modern. And of course, it is a major master plan that KT and the Genting Group and Resorts World, Scott Sabella, et cetera, all have phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. The governor clapped when KT said, I'm going to start phase 2 right away.
Wow.
So I think that every single year, or every single, like most casinos need to do, there will be expansion, renovation, something new to see as we continue to reinvent the town.
Right. That's great. All right. So here's what it looks like right and now. This is the final iteration, what actually opened over here. But before we start talking about some of the nuances in there, I'd like to talk about what the challenges and or opportunities you had when having to design something that already had some steel structure in place. Of course, I'm referring to the fact that the land that was built and a partially built structure was originally owned by Boyd Gaming, and they were supposed to do something called Project Echelon, which was going to be run by Bob Bogner. You guys might know him from being the first person to run Borgata and helping to create that project. So they were excited, but then the Great Recession hit. That came to a halt. You came in 4 years later with some stuff there. How do you go about designing the most modern resort that we've seen so far here in Las Vegas when you're dealing with a partially built structure? Now, it was not too much built, but you had certain things locked into place that you certainly could not change.
No, that is correct. Fortunately, Bob Bogner is a very talented guy,
Yep.
so he made a facility in his master plan that suited what we wanted to do. Most of our casino planning, the towers are on the edges, the casinos are in the middle, and this allows for the ultimate flexibility of the master plan to create whatever we want to, as long as those hotel towers are out of the way.
Right.
Now,
Interesting.
it did have a few fundamental flaws.
Mhm.
That it had a convex and concave shape. And so consequently, we had to do some architectural work to allow for the reflection of the glass and the video panel to work correctly within these couple shapes that were already started. The master plan was fantastic as far as I was concerned, although as time went on, we realized that this tremendous strip frontage, it wasn't like the days in the Mirage where you're driving up past an attraction
Right.
to a porte-cochere. Mostly in Macau and places like that, we've been launching the porte-cocheres on the sides and saving the strip frontages for commercial activity.
And in this case, it's a big retail, dining, and entertainment section.
And there's 2.5 or 3 acres in front of it that will also be a future retail / entertainment / VR / something attraction.
Right, because the original plan before Genting took over, there was supposed to be a bunch of other hotels. So there's a massive piece of open land that's right there, just ripe for you folks to all expand in the next phase.
That is correct. There is a lot of land. KT is the ultimate developer.
Right.
So he didn't waste any money putting the pool in the ground. He put it on the roof and said, this will allow me to expand wherever I want to expand in the future. And consequently, I can change with Las Vegas, or I can affect the change of Las Vegas.
Right.
And of course, that's what we need him and people like Derek Stevens and the other mavericks in our industry to in fact do.
Yes, and Derek Stevens is, of course, the owner of the Circa, the first new build property down there. And how long was it? Decades?
That's 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years.
Pretty unbelievable. But we'll get to that in a minute. I'm looking at this beautiful building and that video wall that you have on there, and you really are pushing it forward. And one of the things that I noticed in the 2 stays that I've been there is the layout inside the building seems to be a lot more conducive to moving people around to where you want to go. Right. I love that you've got the centerpiece is the casino, but then everything seems built around that. Where did you arrive on that idea, and what is the fundamental purpose of all that?
Well, when you started the conversation, you talked about Las Vegas has a lot of other stuff.
Right.
Well, gambling is a tandem-based activity. I mean, we want it to be a tandem-based activity because most people like myself, to take a visit to say, oh, I'm going to go gambling. Well, you're a minority of the population.
Right.
But I'm going to go to dinner. I'm going to go to a show. I'm going to go to a health spa. I'm going to go to a pool. I'm going to have a fantastic weekend with somebody I love. Okay, that's Vegas. That's what it is. And so consequently, the tandem-based activities surrounding the casino are great for the casino. They create energy in the casino. And that's what we want. The casino has got to be the most energetic room in any of these buildings. 24 hours a day, which also has its own challenges. So what we tried to do with Resorts World is that the casino is long and narrow. Now, this is something Steve Wynn would never let us do on the basis of Bally's, because at Bally's, the old Bally's casino, the old MGM built in 72, you would walk in and see the casino at length.
Right.
You would see the length of the casino. Instead, we entered the casino at the sides from all the hotels, which makes the casino feel very small. Yet, in our Asian experience, we were always trying to get the Asian gambler to take short steps, because they don't want to walk a long distance. And consequently, we know this from our planning in Macau. So consequently, we align those 2 things together: the towers, the existing master plan, what Asians experience, what the new geometry of a casino should be, the surrounding activities that will really engage it. And that's how we came up with the plan.
Well, that's really interesting to me. I had no idea that was a cultural thing with Asians. But thank goodness for that, because now I don't have to walk 30,000 steps every day to go basically anywhere.
Exactly.
And I think that what you're referring to, having that casino there with all of the energy that it creates, and that overflows into other areas, such as that great Asian food hall that's there, and the doghouse that's right across the way. The energy is palpable. It's right there. You don't have to go walking down all these weird corridors and stuff like that to find what you want. When you took over the project, was there only going to be one hotel? Because there's 3 now as part of Resorts World. And of course, I'm referring to the Las Vegas Hilton, the Conrad, and of course, Crockford's, where I'm fortunate enough to be staying at this particular time. So how did that all come together in terms of the design? Because it's the first time I've seen something of this specifically. Sure, Mandalay Bay kind of created the whole idea of having the hotel within the hotel, the separate entrance, sure, but this seems much more purposeful.
That's correct. The original plan did have 3 hotels, but they were 3 hotel blocks. Instead, we decided to build only 2 hotel blocks with 3 hotels.
Right.
And so consequently, there was a little North Hotel that KT was never too happy about.
Right.
It didn't have great views. It was on the north side. It was cold. And so consequently, we built, and there's plenty of room to build additional hotels on the land, as you can imagine. So we built 2 hotels. Now, when we did some of the planning at Galaxy in Macau,
Macau, right?
It's the same exact sort of philosophy that you could build multiple hotels, multiple offerings in the same tower. And that's what we did here. Now, it just happened to be a line that they could get the Hilton and the Conrad, which are 2 great brands, and then put it with KT Lim's Crockford's brand from Genting Highlands, which is a 5-star sort of brand, and allow the 5-star brand to interact very well with the high limit gaming and the high limit restaurants.
Yes, and by the way, I tried to go up to the 66th floor where they have the private gaming lounge. I'm hoping to see that later tonight. It wasn't quite open when I was there way too early this morning. One thing I noticed, though, Paul, I don't think it's all the floors, but certainly the floor I'm on, the ceilings are extremely high. That seems like a pretty bold decision to make. It's great for me as a customer, but of course that makes it more expensive and stuff. But it must, where did that come from? Because it really makes it, to me, a lot more luxurious.
True. We put hotel rooms. We lowered the building from where Echelon had it, and consequently, those floor heights are a little bit taller than normal hotel rooms.
Right.
So consequently, it feels very luxurious in some of those. And of course, one of the things we do a lot is that we build those gigantic villas into the space.
Right.
There are 5 beautiful villas that stick out from the hotel tower that, well, face it, they're probably the most gorgeous rooms in Las Vegas.
I'm sure.
Similar to the MGM mansions or some of the rooms at Wynn with their own swimming pools looking out over the golf
Which
course.
is amazing. Those rooms at Wynn, and the first he did that at Mirage, right? And those were
nice suites.
Yeah, those are spectacular. I've had a chance to see them. I've seen the ones at Wynn as well. I also last month got a chance for my first time to go see the Mansion, which was really special. So one of the things here in Las Vegas is you must have these incredible suites in order to appeal to that very high-end gambler, the whales that we're trying to get in here.
Yeah. When Danny Wade and John Redmond did the Mansions together with Terry Lanny, I mean, they killed Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was like, wow, this place is unbelievable. And it still is today. It still is an unbelievable offering at 23 of probably the most palatial hotel in the world. They never advertise it.
No, they don't. It took me, Paul, it took me like 15 years to find someone who would take me through it. It's that on the down low. All right. So before we move on Resorts World and stuff, again, congratulations. It looks absolutely terrific. It's wonderful to be back now 5-6 months after opening, to see more of it coming to life, more venues that are opening. But when you're thinking about, again, pushing the design dialogue and pushing the amenities are in there, what were you thinking about in terms of how people might use that property differently compared to how they might have used older properties that you created? Because again, we're in a time of change in Las Vegas. Well, every day is time of change in Las Vegas.
True. Well, I think differently. I think we've learned a lot from our Asian experience that we're able to put in there. So consequently, it can have the best Asian offering, which I think is important for a casino here to, in fact, accommodate international travelers.
Right.
And Resorts World does that very, very well. And we were able to do it very well, like we've done it in Macau and in Philippines and places like this that we've designed buildings. I think as well, we were able to take some of the tricks from stations, and obviously the Fertittas are very knowledgeable guys and have really defined our industry as far as parking garages, as far as food courts, and the whole stretching of the food court, famous foods along the edges just gives that casino tremendous energy. You have to really thank Yui Lim, KT's son, who's a genius sort of food and beverage and nightclub entertainer extraordinaire to, in fact, do that. And it really came off well. So we're able to take that Asian sensibility, kind of put it together with some of the Mirage and Bellagio types of things that you see that everybody loves, and then put it together with some local sensibility.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we have a pretty energetic plan. Add the forum shops to the front, which eventually will be a connecting link, connecting Circus and all the way down to Wynn's new site at the Frontier. So it's going to be the shortest way, instead of walking on the street, the shortest way to walk from Wynn's new site at the Frontier to Circus will be through the district mall, as they're calling it.
Any chance you're involved in that Wynn site?
No, Matt and they obviously have a design department of over 100 people. DeRuyter Butler and some of the people there are the most talented.
Todd Avery Lenahan.
Todd Avery Lenahan.
He's great. And when he mentioned Matt, he's speaking of Matt Maddox, the guy who runs the joints over there. I'm really excited to see what they have. But I'll tell you, man, downtown is a totally different animal. And I feel like downtown is the only place where old school, I'll use your word, Mavericks can still find a lot of success, right? Up here on the Strip, Resorts World coming in at just under $5 billion. You're not going to see that downtown. It's a different vibe. It's a different energy. It's a different type of audience. Derek Stevens, absolutely incredible. Coming out of Michigan as an auto parts guy, decides he wants to take over downtown Las Vegas, got the Golden Gate, bought another property, turned it into the D. They were extremely successful. And then he goes ahead and he's like, I'm going to build the first new ground up development. And we decided it was 40 years. So what was it like doing Circa, and what were your rules that you were given in order to go ahead and create, which I think is the most incredible project? It's Paul, you guys knew what that wanted to be.
Thank you.
And you completely excelled at doing that. So congratulations on that. I love that property.
Thank you. A lot of people do love it, and it is very successful. We're very pleased with the results. We had an unbelievable team and an unbelievable owner, unbelievable builders. I mean, there is a large cadre of people, including Derek Stevens' staff and of course executive staff, who in fact help us design this project. We met, we had to win this in a competition. So there was 3 or 4 other architects. I think Derek Stevens looked at our presentation submittal and said, Paul gets it.
Right.
And so consequently, we got it. And a lot of the things we showed him in that original thing, as always, I think casinos need something, a new thing.
Right.
They can't just be a beautiful hotel anymore and beautiful restaurants. They need that singular attraction.
And to me, that's got to be the outdoor sports book and the indoor sports book, right?
The attractions we came up with during the presentation, during our original presentation, was the sports stadium. The idea to pile 50 rec rooms on top of one another in a stadium-like appearance and have a sports book that the screen is half the size of the Dallas Cowboys Stadium downtown. As we pierce through 3 levels of hotel, 3 levels of podium, interjecting energy into the podium 24 hours a day, was something that we put in there. Then we had what was a facsimile of Stadium Swim, that we had a giant screen, we had a terrace pool. We did have some trees in our competition, which Derek didn't particularly like. And we showed him the facsimile of that. Then as a guy growing up here, from my 30s on,
Mhm.
you know, many times we used to go to the Mint for dinner in the restaurant. It was always a
Right.
special occurrence.
The Mint is an
And
old school casino that's long gone.
right. Well, it's not long gone. It's actually part of Binion's Horseshoe now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's part of. Yeah, it hasn't been torn down.
Oh my goodness, I didn't realize
yeah,
that.
it's connected as one. And we used to go up to that restaurant once in a while as an occasion. It was always fascinating for me to see the strip
Right.
from downtown. So we've always showed something spectacular on the roof. We had his things that he likes,
Right.
a long bar, and of course his brother Greg Stevens is an engineer, technology buff, and I love working with him. I mean, that's why we have air conditioning from the floor.
Right.
That's why we have the biggest beer cooler in the world.
Yeah. So that air conditioning on the floor, dude, that is unbelievable. I was walking through there. I was walking through there with my my No Vacancy Live partner, Anthony Melchiori, and he goes, What's with all these rings on the floor? What's that all about? And then we like step on him, like, oh my God, genius. Air conditioning coming from the floor.
We've only done that in one other casino, in a casino we designed in Finland, because in Finland they require it.
Really?
Because the air is much cleaner. The air coming from the floor is much cleaner, and it's actually cheaper to run the building because you're not cooling and supplying and returning the air from the same spot. So consequently, although cold air sinks, but it's a very good way. But Greg Stevens had the technology foresight. The two of them together are quite good, I think. And you know, our loading dock, our beer cooler, the registration lobby. I think we studied 150 porte-cochere designs.
Wow.
150 to get the porte-cochere just right. So the VIPs, porte-cochere, the taxis, and so forth and so on. One of the things that came later in the design of this was our transportation
I was
center.
about to say the coolest rideshare
Yeah.
area ever.
Garage Mahal.
Yeah, the Garage Mahal, right?
And we can't take any credit for the names. Derek did those himself, both Circa and the Garage Mahal. And but we did try to show him this garage multiple times as being more of a transportation center. And I think Wall Street, when he financed the building, loved it because, you know, Fremont Street has the second largest population of any public street in the world.
Right.
Times Square being number one, 42 million people, and Fremont Street being number two, 24 million and growing.
I had no idea it was that significant.
It is that significant. Wow. Fremont Street is that significant. Wow. And the thing is that when we do get the Tesla tunnel, I call it, or the Boring Company tunnel, and their first legs are going to be downtown.
And which, incidentally, they do have something at the bottom of Resorts World to take you over to the convention center.
We assisted them with that. And also we drew that past one of our new sites and working with the Boring Company. But when that gets connected, downtown will be even more popular.
I can't imagine,
because it is a great place to in fact go.
Now, Paul, you're seeing, besides that, to get away from the casino thing for a second, you have downtown and you have the whole arts district, and it's like everything is kind of expanding on both sides. And I could picture 20, 30 years from now, it just being one cohesive element, you know?
We've talked to the mayor about that, about what Main Street should look like. And we hope that someday Main Street does look like that and connects it down to the stratosphere.
Right.
And we've actually proposed to the mayor something called the Light Line, you know, like the High Line in New York.
Oh, I know the High Line. That is such an amazing part.
It's amazing. So you can imagine that we have a downtown and a outlet mall that attracts 20 million people a year, some ungodly amount of people, but it's across the railroad tracks from downtown. So we said, let's build the Light Line, a neon version of the High Line, across to those tracks, and we've suggested that to the mayor.
That's pretty cool.
So that we could engage Main Street at least down to Charleston. The city planning aspects of downtown are very unique, and we think that Circa has now perked everybody up, and everybody now says, "Hey, you know, we can make a place work down there," and it's not that same old, you know, drudgery that a lot of the casinos had. Oh, I'm only going to make so much money. I can't spend a lot of money. I have to be conservative. I market my people from Hawaii or whatever I do. But now Fremont Street is happening. Yeah. Whenever I take a person from Cambodia, from the Philippines, from Philadelphia, I had a guy here from Philadelphia the other day.
Yeah.
And we walked down on Fremont Street and he said, "This is what I want. I want Fremont Street. How do I get it?"
Right.
And of course it's hard to get.
Right.
It's hard to duplicate Not a lot of people have 70 million or 100 million or whatever the canopy would cost nowadays. And it's hard to assimilate everything that was assimilated to, in fact, pay for that type of attraction and have as many people agree upon it.
Yeah.
And,
and let me just give another piece of insight. The whole canopy thing is kind of owned by a consortium of the casino owners downtown. So it's kind of like your condo board. You got to get everybody to agree on something, right?
Almost everybody.
Yeah, right.
There was one that didn't agree.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think he probably wishes he had agreed today.
Right.
But the entertainers on those little circles, the free bands, the concerts, the iHeart Radio, they're getting ready for the country western. This is all a very large event sort of place. And then Derek Stevens also enhanced it with his downtown event center, which is basically a parking lot with an AstroTurf covering and some mezzanines that he pulls in some trucks. And he has some of the most unique events in Las Vegas that are located just off the Fremont Street. And so we think that Circa really is the anchor now to a new downtown. Yeah. And that new downtown will be reinvented as we start today.
Right. So because right now it's a clash between the historic and the future. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that develops over time. But for me, again, I love going downtown now more than ever, at least one night on every single stay that I'm at, because it's more casual, laid back, a little bit less expensive. And all of that entertainment that you have out there really, really appeals to me. Another great project that kind of has that same vibe to me was when Caesars did the Link project. I thought that was fabulous. It really changed the dynamic of how people are going to enjoy themselves there. So
they copied a lot of Fremont Street there.
I think so. I think so. But it definitely is created a gathering place for people. And there's a lot of energy around that. Now, when you're looking at a property like you're designing resorts for, and you're looking at a property like Circa, they're obviously geared towards different audiences. How do you and your team get into the right head to make sure that you're creating properties that are going to really appeal to the demographics and the psychographics of the folks that you hope are going to be utilizing those places?
Well, I kind of take the Steve Wynn approach to a lot of this. I mean, Steve Wynn would always say that he's going to design the place in accordance with his own guidelines, and it'll be spectacular enough to attract everybody. Right. Steve would always brag, although probably not nice, but he would say, "Oh, those other hotels around me are dormitories, right, for everybody to see the Mirage or Treasure Island, etc." But I think that we listen to our owners carefully, and with Derek Stevens, we really knew that he wanted Las Vegas. He loves Las Vegas. There is a style, Las Vegas style, and that has been lost in the years since we've lost a lot of the great hotels like the Riviera, and things were changed.
It breaks my heart to see like a hotel knocked down and become a parking lot. Right.
Exactly. Well, that's gonna spring to life soon.
I hope so.
But Derek really loved Las Vegas. He loved the book. It was written by our famous author, David
Schwartz,
Grandissimo.
I highly recommend Grandissimo. Right. What a fabulous book. As a matter of fact, any David Schwartz book. Right. He's a UNLV professor. You've got to get them. They are so fascinating, in detail, and the writing is super crisp and easy to read.
Really great. And his last book, On the Sands, I've given out about 25 copies, dude, and it's a wonderful book.
I went through that like that.
Wonderful.
It was amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
please continue.
So we really do believe that that Vegas had a style, and that was what Derek wanted. Yep. He wanted Vegas, and we said that we want Vegas too. We've made a business for the last 33 years of trying to sell Vegas elsewhere. Right. So now all of a sudden we're selling Vegas in Vegas. Wow, this is a great opportunity for us, instead of us having to do New Orleans and Vegas or something like that. So
it's funny because it seemed like that was going to be the trend, and it was only a very brief period in time. The ultra themed resorts, they all came in, I feel like within a 7 to 10 year period, and then everything shifted. Right.
It did.
I think the first property to shift away from that was the original Wynn, after he sold Wynn Resorts to MGM and he went on to create the new property. He wanted to get away from that theming and make it more of a timeless thing. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Steve always said about the Wynn design, that he could design something that was unique and modern, that was attractable and was Vegas.
Right.
And that's what he did. Of course, Roger Thomas did a lot of that. And obviously that was successful. That set a trend, just as he set a trend 20 years before he opened the Wynn, when he opened up Mirage. He set the same trend. He misstepped a little bit with Treasure Island because that was during the kids section of our time. And, but still, the Treasure Island was a uniquely successful building, making a very, very high return on its investment, and still to this day. But we, in the creating of this, we always think that Las Vegas style is something people want to see and people want to participate in. And that's what we did there.
Right.
If you look at some of our original design book pages, they all talk about Las Vegas style. And what is it? What is Las Vegas style? And so consequently, Derek was great with that. Then we go to Resorts World. It's kind of a little bit the exact opposite. It's got to be a modern building, a modern sort of a piece of architecture and interior design and lighting design, which was very important.
And very, very well lit. It doesn't feel dark in there.
Right. One of the things that we really wanted to do in Resorts World was to make a bright casino. Resorts World today makes a lot of Las Vegas look old.
Right.
And so consequently, a lot of Las Vegas will have to be stepped up a little bit. But we did learn about lighting in Macau, and, we did the Star World Casino. We raised the light levels, changed the colors over the sun, increased the GGR, gross gaming revenue, by 35%.
Wow.
By the lighting.
How do you correlate that? How do you figure that out?
Well, somebody hires us to do a renovation and tells us their problems.
Right.
I'm not making enough money at this place.
Okay. Then at the end of the renovation, you see what it boosts.
And then we do the renovation. Then they tell me that, oh, wow, it's 30% more, 35% more. Congratulations. We'll hire you for the next job.
That's so interesting, though, that you can conceptualize that raising the light X amount percent can actually yield people wanting to stay and empty their pockets more.
Right. Well, I've always said that people in Las Vegas, people in casinos, do not live in a cave in eternal darkness.
Right.
So consequently, this whole phobia about putting windows and all this other stuff is not necessarily the best thing. And we consequently we were the first to interject a window into a casino.
Right.
So at the Sands Macau, we did a gigantic east-facing window.
That's awesome.
And so consequently, we believe in actually placing so much light in these buildings. We think that people look better when it's light.
Yeah.
And people love it. And face it, young people want to be outside. And we want, all of a sudden, our restaurants all want to have alfresco dining possibilities.
It's so true.
And not on the west side either. I mean, on the south side or on the east side of the building.
It's true. As we're recording this, Carver Steak has yet to open. It's going to be opening up at the December 30th. And I was speaking to my friends over at the restaurant group, and I think half the seats are outside at that place.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really much more of an emphasis on combining that outdoors indoor type of universe.
That's
now,
great. Well, we have perfect weather here.
Right.
So why not have seats outside? Why not have alfresco dining possibilities?
Yeah.
I think the Wynn did that very well with the alfresco at SAW Steakhouse and the fish restaurant that's recently changed names. I think that they did that very well. And there are many great buildings that have pointed the views at different exterior attractions to create a sense of escapism.
Right.
What are we trying to do in Las Vegas? Well, we're escaping the city. So we're escaping urbanism. So we're going to suburbanism. That's number one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what we want to do, is go to suburban, be landscape oriented. This is Don Brinkerhoff, may rest in peace, was one of his great contributions to Las Vegas. Wasn't about desert landscaping. It was about creating suburban sort of experiences that you don't get anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. There is no desert landscaping anywhere in the world that resembles what we have here.
Yeah,
not even close.
That's very true.
Not even close.
That's another reason why I love this city. But I think you're now moving on to a very exciting and a different project, one that's going to be located by the Las Vegas Convention Center. So I can understand why it doesn't have a casino. But of course, I'm talking about the Majestic. Let me pull up some pictures here. Tell me a little bit about what you're thinking about this particular structure, which as of us recording this, I think it's breaking ground in January of 2022, right?
That is correct. Lorenzo Domani is an old Las Vegas family with a young new leader, Lorenzo, and his father was in the business, owning the La Concha Hotel, shares in the Golden Nugget, shares at the Tropicana, and many other real estate projects around the valley.
Yeah.
And so consequently, Lorenzo, this is a dream of his to in fact build a non-gaming hotel. And when he bought the Debbie Reynolds, which was on this site before, he had no idea that the convention center big entry would be directly across the street, and the Tesla tunnel would actually hook into his building.
That's amazing.
He had no idea about that. It was almost dumb luck. And so consequently, this building is pretty unique. It has obviously a very nice hotel, very nice non-gaming hotel. Plus, it has 10 floors on the roof of VIP sort of suites, but convention style suites. So that conventioneers or convention companies that attend our conventions, as conventions like CES or Magic or ConExpo, can actually buy suites at the very top of this.
Love it.
To, in fact, have their hospitality rooms, have a permanent display, and these things that are a little bit away from the actual convention.
And they're
center.
not guest rooms.
And they're not guest rooms.
That
they're not
is an incredible observation that you folks made. Because I go to these conferences and I'll just see the Alice conference, which I go to every January, Hotel Industry Investment Conference. They only sell suites of a certain level to, to the brands and stuff like that that are sponsors, so they could do that. I love the idea at these convention center hotels to have now dedicated space to be able to sell that. That is a brand new concept that I haven't seen before.
And that is Lorenzo's idea.
That was his brilliant idea.
Sure. It's a brilliant idea.
And to me, that all of a sudden makes me go, oh, okay. Now we don't necessarily need the casino because you're right next to the convention center. You're very hyper focused on that type of universe of business, and you're able to attract folks that don't necessarily want to be engaged in a lot of the major resort casinos. Right.
That's true. And it also has two other attractions. It has a health spa, which will be on Desert Inn Road, that will overlook the beautiful Wynn Golf Club. And the health spa, in fact, is quite large, and it will be a health and wellness spa. So a little bit different than your typical spa. Get a rub down. You'll come there for checkups.
It's going to be more focused on medical as well.
Health. That's exactly correct. That's what he wants it to be.
And that's pretty cool because, again, you're involved in a project that's pushing the boundaries of what we can expect here in Las Vegas. I love some of the spas here. One at Encore is like really gorgeous. I love that one. I have not had a chance to see the one at Resorts World yet. You can always hope. Maybe I'll go later this week. But yeah, those specialize in old school spa. But now, one of the things I've been saying, Paul, is there's nothing new under the universe these days because of COVID. All the trends were already in the marketplace. It's just COVID has accelerated stuff, in my belief. And I'm seeing a real high emphasis now on well-being and wellness in particular. So this is at the right place at the right time. So how does Lorenzo envision bringing together all of that for the convention goer, and how's that going to play out in your design?
Well, I think if you combine it with a third feature, which is the grouping of restaurants.
Right. So there's gonna be like 6 of them.
Yeah. But they're independent. They're almost walk across the street and there's a restaurant there.
Yeah.
So that's a really great thing. They're not in a podium. You don't have to travel through the podium. There'll be lots of al fresco dining possibilities, and there'll be the multiplicity of these fantastic restaurants that will be absolutely great. Some of the names that he's talking to are absolutely overjoyed at the possibility of having their own space, their own restaurant, that is directly adjacent to the convention center entry. And then in the convention center, of course, is only basically a food court.
Right.
So consequently, if you want anything of any, of a good meal, you can come across the street. So he combines these 4 items.
Right. That's interesting. I just need to make a comment on that because, again, I think that's unique and different. By removing it from the building itself, it's more visible to the convention goers who are not staying in Majestic and creates a de facto meeting place for a lot of folks.
That's correct.
Right?
That is absolutely his idea,
Right.
and that's what he wants to do.
Fascinating.
And I think that these 4 things that he's put, as Circa has the stadium and the stadium swim and our legacy bar, I think that his attraction on the roof, the convention centers, the exhibition halls, the health wellness spa, and the restaurants, and the very, very large hotel, will make this a trend-setting convention hotel that I think other cities will eventually start to copy, and put next to their convention centers.
Interesting. Now convention center hotels, but hotels that focus on convention center. I think, of course, this project, the LA Live Complex and the JW Marriott and stuff like that. I think it really redefined how you can have a convention facility, not the big convention center, but convention space happens to be located near a convention center. But I don't think that was really the point. Really integrating everything and pulling together. I was up in Edmonton in September of 2021. There's JW there. They're basically going out for the same exact kind of concept. So
they are.
I love that. This project, the Majestic, is going to, I think, be taking all of that to the next natural level by incorporating a lot of new elements as well.
I think that it will.
Yeah.
There's no question in my mind that it will be a very, very successful project. Lots of standard hotel companies don't actually get it, but I think the diversity of this project will shine above all other convention hotels in the United States and throughout the world. To be honest with you,
I wish them a lot of luck. 750 luxury rooms. That's a tall order, but not for Las Vegas.
Not for Las Vegas. That's true. That's true. If we don't have 1,000 rooms, you're not even on the map.
I know.
It's
so true.
There are more hotel rooms on the corner of Tropicana than in all of San Francisco. So I mean, so consequently, it is what it is. The average RevPAR is high, so that's why we build many hotels. It's the second largest source of revenue in the building.
So as we sit here today, Paul, recording this, the state of Las Vegas right now, in terms of what people are looking for, we seem to be focused a lot more on live music. We seem to be focused more on outdoor eating and shopping and stuff like that. You think these things are going to stay for a while? And how do you design for the future for that? And what is your next big thing that you're thinking about?
Well, we definitely think that live music is here to stay.
I hope so.
We think spaces that draw a crowd are here to stay.
Sports. I totally, I mean, hockey coming here and football coming here. Soon there's going to be baseball. I'm sure of it. It really changes the dynamic again.
Baseball will be here.
Yeah.
So we think that sports and sports viewing, in the way the manner that Circa did it, has also reinvented the town and will reinvent these buildings a lot. We think the digital integration of all sorts of digital services, including digital gaming, including digital live gaming, will in fact change it. So you'll be coming out of your digital wallet, and these will be the first buildings that we digitally integrated.
Interesting.
And we are very anxious about doing that.
Yeah.
We think that some artificial intelligence, VR applications, virtual reality applications will in fact play out here. And we think that although esports hasn't been popular here in Las Vegas and not very successful when it's been tried, we do think that there is an application that could in fact become a future sort of activity that Las Vegas is very
I don't
good
understand why it's not even more popular. I thought it was a genius move for Luxor to turn the LAX nightclub into a, sports, video gaming type of esports facility. I don't get it, because I think that's such a natural. I think it might be a case of culture just hasn't caught up to it yet, but it's going to be here before we know it.
Right. That's true. I think that when you do something like that and you say, well, I'm going to turn a nightclub or in downtown a movie theater into this activity, I don't think that's the right.
It's not purpose built.
So no, I don't think so. We also think our convention centers our ballrooms won't have chandeliers. We'll have digital ceilings. We'll have digital stages that'll act as stage sound sets that we can do digital filming in a stage set in a convention room. We think that the convention areas will be more flexible, more modern, and will be less design.
Right.
We think they will be more transitional so people can, in fact, without a lot of expense, do them.
But when you say less design, you actually mean a lot more work goes into creating that appearance of less design, right?
That's the famous adage for Scandinavian design. It actually takes more work to make that look good. And of course, we like that. We like a modern building. Now, we also are very high on a product here called View Glass. View Glass is a glass. I have a piece up in my office that goes from it's like transition lenses for your glass. And we believe that we've always wanted our casinos to show themselves well.
Right.
We wanted to show what's inside to the outside. Because when we're driving by, we get the people to come in once.
Right.
When they're in, then the interior decor and the design, the layout, and the planning keeps them remember and repeat.
Right.
Remember and repeat. So consequently, we think that this glass has the ability to pique the curiosity of the visitor. Instead of us plastering a building with signs, we can actually say, what is that?
Right.
I have to go in there.
That's cool.
And so as soon as we get in there, then we could do it. So you can imagine that instead of tinting all the glass, and then we're not saying that this is for hotels, although it is for hotels too, hotel rooms, but on podiums, instead of tinting the glass, putting signs, putting facades, drive it, plaster systems, blah, 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 to have a smooth glass facade that goes from virtually clear at night to virtually 99% when the west sun is shining in. So consequently, this has been tested in some commercial endeavors, which it in fact has increased the commercial revenues of the adjacent properties.
Fascinating.
By a lot.
Wow.
So we think that this is another way, when you're talking about pools and the integration of pools and the integration of landscaping and the integration of outside dining and the people inside outside, that Frank Lloyd Wright, let's blur the lines between inside and outside. We actually think we can do that with a casino.
Wow.
And that's one of our newest things that we're working
on. Wow. That's exciting. Well, I'm love coming to this town because there's always something new and different to experience. And a lot of that is because of guys like you and the amazing people that you work with. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope that you stay and move to Las Vegas. We want to promote our activities of our colleges here.
Yep.
We want our colleges and universities to, in fact, feature design and technology. And we think that things we learn in Las Vegas are pretty good.
Yeah.
And they can be used a lot of places to create a lot of wonderful activities for people to participate in.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Paul Steelman. This has been such a pleasure, such an honor.
Thank you.
What a lucky guy.
Thank you. I am lucky. There's no doubt.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching the Hotel Design Podcast. We'll be back with another episode soon, although I'm not sure we can beat this one. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.
Thank you.